the concerns of this law were from a different time. And so when you're starting to wrap your head around why do we have to do all these things, what were the concerns? It was this concern that with the internet age, sharing of personal data was a big threat. Okay. And so we had the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act that came out around that time, and it governs what we call non-public personal information. Okay. Now that NPPI is the acronym you might see. And we'll get into the definition of what non-public personal information is. But there was a lot of concern that consumer information was being released into the internet, and it was going all over the place, and companies were sharing information amongst themselves. Financial institutions particularly were concerned about sharing our information. And so this rule came out to put some guide rails up. Now, for better or for worse, these guide rails have brought us from the point where we were very hyper concerned about technology and sharing information, and to the point where now information is shared relatively freely in a way that probably would have made people cringe back in 1999. But that was the whole purpose of this law. Okay. And now there's been some changes and tweaks over the years, and we'll talk about the important ones. It's important for you to know that now the CFPP, they do own this regulation. But let's get into what exactly did it do. Okay, high level, before we get into the details. It was required. You must, as a financial institution, if you're subject to this rule, you have to disclose what to consumers, what are you going to do with their information, right? We're gathering all of this information, we're putting it into electronic form, so we have to let them know what we're going to do with it, okay? High level. Also, as part of this law, and it's kind of outside of the disclosure requirements, but you need to know there were also security requirements. We needed to have both administrative and technical and physical restrictions or safeguards out there to protect our data or the information that we were gathering about our customers. And so we had to have security rules and security framework. We had to have confidentiality rules on how we're sharing that information with third parties. We need to make sure that that there was integrity to our system. And we had to have specific rules about how we properly disposed of this information. So all of this was encapsulated into this privacy rule. So in other words, we had to have policies and procedures and practices that we put into place to prevent the unlawful disclosure or unlawful use of this non-public personal information. And we were very, very focused on account numbers and things that could tie this data to an individual.